And we are joined now by NewsNation senior political contributor George Will. George, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. It's good to see you.
Glad to be with you.
George, what are some of your key takeaways from the former president's first official campaign rally tonight?
You know, there are radio stations all over the country that play oldies but goodies, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s rock. This was an oldies but goodies tour. The fundamental truth about American politics is that elections are about the future. And all this from Mr. Trump tonight was about the past, his multiplying and many grievances. This was, I have to tell you, I think a good night for Ron DeSantis, because the contrast between Mr. DeSantis and Mr. Trump is going to be stark at this point. Mr. Trump is obsessed with his own grievances. I didn't hear a thing tonight, maybe you did, correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't hear a thing tonight about the future, about the plans. I mean, when he campaigned in 2016, at least he says, I'm going to build a wall and Mexico will pay for it. Well, he didn't and Mexico didn't, but at least he was talking about the future. This was tonight, you know, there's a real danger that Mr. Trump, who got into the political business through entertainment, through his show, The Apprentice, is neglecting to understand that an entertainer cannot be boring. He has to refresh his act. And I didn't hear anything refreshed tonight.
You know, Mr. Trump already saying, to your point, that if he doesn't win, this election is rigged. Is this a scenario that voters who are not in his core base, other Republican voters, will actually get behind?
I think we've heard this before, frankly. In 2016, when he first entered, and they said, will you support the nominee of the Republican Party? He hesitated because it is his theory that any election he loses must be, because he lost, rigged. Now, once you believe that, you are leaving the path open to a third-party candidacy. Suppose Mr. Trump says, well, I lost the Republican nomination, therefore it must have been a corrupt election, therefore I will go to the country as a third-party candidate. And he can guarantee the defeat of the Republican candidate and another 4 years of a Democratic president. Republicans are, I know, deeply worried about this.
You know, Trump facing a number of investigations, the one in Manhattan apparently close to a potential indictment at this point. And Kelly Meyer for us on the ground describing those white printed signs, Trump 2024 on one side, witch hunt very clearly in letters on the other side. In your opinion, is Trump helping or hurting his own case with constant posts on social media now, bashing the Manhattan DA and really labeling this investigation a witch hunt?
I think of all the many, and there are many, investigations of Mr. Trump underway, now the one he has least to fear is the one in Manhattan. If that should go to trial, Mr. Trump is certain to win because the federal prosecutors looked at this charge, the Federal Election Commission looked at the charge, and they said, there's nothing here. The investigation ongoing about the documents in Mar-a-Lago, particularly the charge that's evidently being investigated that Mr. Trump obstructed federal investigators. That may be a larger thing, but frankly, I don't think any of these investigations matter. I think what you saw tonight in what I don't know how many hours we're into now, but almost 2 hours of Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump's big problem is Mr. Trump. That is, he hasn't refreshed his appeal. He hasn't updated his agenda. And I think the American people are going to move on whether or not he does.
Strong words. And I do want to ask one more question for you. So far tonight, saying he is not a big fan of Governor Ron DeSantis, his likely top rival for the GOP nomination, although he hasn't declared yet. Should DeSantis strike back at this point, or based on what you're saying, should he let Mr. Trump play out the way that things are playing out right now?
Nothing would infuriate Mr. Trump more and probably do Mr. DeSantis more good than to ignore Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump can stand anything except the spotlight moving on. So if Mr. DeSantis is wise, I think he will say, what? I didn't notice what he said about me.
All right, George Will, appreciate the context and insight. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.